session for February 3rd. Our meeting will be Thursday on February the 6th, starting at 6 o'clock. Our first order of business is to recognize ask our fire chief to come forward for our new recruits. Chief Ellers.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. I'd like to proudly to present you with our newest fire medics to Clearwater Fire and Rescue for their oaths this morning. And before the city clerk comes up to give them their oath, I'd like to just give a quick introduction to each one. Starting on your far right, we have fire medic Cullen Ahern. We received him from Hernando Fire Department. He's been married for 2.5 years, and he's a proud dog owner. Next to him is fire medic Christopher Collins. We were able to get him from Seminole Fire and Rescue. He's been married for 3 years and has 2 children. Next to him is J.D. Desagnier from Palms of Pasadena Hospital, but he also has 3 years of fire service behind him. Then we have fire medic Chandler Dobler. We were able to get him from Dunedin Fire Rescue just up the road, which he had 2 years in the fire service with them. Fire medic Eric Heisler. Michael Donovan. Did I get that right? Michael Donovan, fire medic Michael Donovan from Orange County, from the Orlando area. He had 3 years in the fire service there. Then we have fire medic Eric Heisler. We also received from the Orange County Fire Department, where he had 5 years of service there. Next is fire medic Caitlin Homey from Sunstar. This is her first experience in the fire department, and we're glad to have her. She is a mother of 1 son. Then we have fire medic Joel Lewandowski. He also is from Sunstar, and this is his first time in the fire service as well. And we have fire medic Mason St. Martin, and we got him from Safety Harbor Fire Department just down the road. He's newly married, and he has 4 years in the fire service. Last but not least, we have fire medic Stephanie Newskowski from a little bit further away from everybody else, Taylor County Fire Department, where she had 5 years in the fire service prior to joining us. So with that, I would ask the city clerk to give them their oaths.
Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government
the Constitution and government
of the United States
of the United
and of the
States
state of Florida
and the state of Florida,
and the charter and laws
the charter and
of the
laws
city of Clearwater,
of the city of Clearwater,
that I am duly qualified
that I am duly
to
qualified
hold office
to hold office
under the charter and laws
under the charter and
of the
laws
city of Clearwater,
of the city of
and
Clearwater,
that I will
and that I will
well and faithfully perform the duties of fire medic
of fire medic
on which I'm now about to enter.
on which I am now about to enter.
What kind of bonus you got?
I'm not checking those. So were you on show line up in Hernando?
I was there for a little bit.
Okay, we have a place we can watch these.
Yeah, I was at
Welcome
the
aboard.
when we took over the volunteers.
Welcome.
Good to see you again. Thank you.
Good to see you again.
All the best to you. All the best. Good job.
Welcome to the city.
Good to see you again. Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. So again, on behalf of all of us, congratulations. It's hard to believe that the oath of office for a fire medic or even a council member has more words in it than the presidents of the United States, oath. It always, when it takes so long to go through, and the president's oath, I think, is only 35 words, So, guys, good luck to you, ladies. Thank y'all. Our next order of business is 3.1, Mr. Horn.
Approve the addendum to the agreement between IntelliMark Technologies, Inc., ETICS, and the City of Clearwater to provide for more specific terms and conditions and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Cook.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Mayor and Council. Chris Cook, Senior Manager, Parks and Recreation, Events and Athletics Section. This morning we have the ETICS agreement, which back in 2014 we entered through an RFP process with ETICS to be our official ticket provider. As that initial agreement sunsetted, we had changed some terms there Instead of receiving a sponsorship, the big change there is instead of receiving a sponsorship, we are now going to have an expert from ETICS be on site to be our official representative, overseeing the system, being an expert in ticketing.
Any questions of staff on 3.1? Does this help address some of the problems that we had earlier in the year with some of the other concerts that had been reported, or?
Yeah, through that process, we were able to drill down and find the kind of information we need to have provided after each event, and that's what this ETICS representative will make sure that we receive after each event.
Okay. Mr. Albert?
So I know they're not charging per ticket, but I saw some events that they had on there that if we do more events, are they going to charge more for it? Because I know there's an hourly rate that if we don't have, can you explain that to me?
Yeah, there's a formula where if we sell or we project to sell X amount of tickets, that they'll provide a representative on site. If we decide to bring somebody down and it doesn't hit that threshold, then there would be some costs associated. But the events that we're earmarking right now to have an on-site representative, we're not afraid that we're not going to hit that number.
All right.
Consent?
Yep.
Agenda item 3.2.
Approve a one-year service agreement between the American Red Cross and the City of Clearwater for aquatic examiner services to provide assessments for lifeguard operations at the Long Center to ensure the highest level of standards and safety for patrons and lifeguards for an estimated cost not to exceed $4,000, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Ms. Clayton.
Good morning. Sandy Clayton, Recreation Division Manager with the Parks and Recreation Department. I'm presenting a one-year agreement with the American Red Cross to provide a lifeguarding operations assessment at the Long Center. As you know, the Parks and Recreation Department provides swim lessons annually in an effort to reduce child drowning in Pinellas County. We want to make sure that our program is meeting all of the operational benchmarks set by the American Red Cross. This agreement will permit the Red Cross to perform an independent audit of an assessment of our facility, our staff, and our program. At the conclusion of the assessment, the Red Cross will provide us with a written report that will list our strong areas, our areas of concern or potential risk, and suggestions for improvement. Additionally, the agreement will provide us with follow-up staff trainings on any areas of concern. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Any questions of staff on 3.2? Consent?
Yes.
3.3.
Approve an agreement between Beasley Media Group, Inc. and the city to host the 2020 Wild Splash event at Coachman Park on March 7th, 2020. Approve a reimbursement payment to Beasley Media Group, Inc. from ticket sales made during the event, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Cook again.
Thank you, sir. Chris Cook, Parks and Recreation, Manager of Events and Athletics. Wild Splash is an annual event. It's an annual sold-out event that we host at Coachman Park. As this event requires many city services with the partnership of our Clearwater Police Department, Fire Department, and many, many others, we collect and hold ticket revenue that we then make sure we reimburse ourselves, and the net payment after we reimburse city costs then goes back to the partner. And that amount does exceed the 100,000, which is why we're coming to ask you for that today. So with that, I'll answer any other questions.
Any questions on 3.3? Mr. Hamilton?
No, not really. My question is, all we do is cover expenses? There's no, we don't share in any net revenues after, because I understand a lot of the money that after we pay our expenses and goes back to Beasley, they've got a lot of entertainers to pay for and a lot of, the entertainment costs. But with what's left over, do we share with Beasley and anything that's left over after that, or is that all theirs?
The ticket revenue is Beasley's per the agreement, but we do get a $25,000 rental fee from them. And then the city also does all the food and beverage at this event.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yep. Sorry for neglecting that.
Thank you.
So what that means in the bottom line is that the city generates revenue that we use for Parks and Rec services, other programs in the Parks and Rec
Correct,
department.
exactly.
And the concessions revenue helps many different nonprofits that man, some of them man some of the concession areas and stuff too, so.
Mr. Horn, you want to speak?
I just want to give you a heads up that food and drink revenue that revenue source is something that is, the vendors are going to go after that. Because they're looking at ways of enhancing their bottom line, and ticket sales alone, may not completely meet their needs. So I don't, for example, expect there to be smooth sailing going forward, because the food and drink revenue source is a very good revenue source. And we would want to protect that, but that could make it difficult, for us to, to maintain some of the programs. If the vendors insist on that, it is by agreement that we have identified that revenue source that comes to us. So that's why just something to think about.
Consent?
I have one more question. Mr. Horn, so food and beverage revenue, the vendors make all the money from their sales, but it's the rental of their spot that we're getting, right? Is that?
Yeah, the rental and then the food and drink revenue, we retain that.
Well, how are they making money for it? I mean, how do the food and beverage people, the vendors that are coming in there, if they're not retaining any of their sales?
Yeah, they are. I mean, it's a.
Yes, so at this event specifically, Wild Splash, we will rent out the spaces for the food vendors, but the city does all the beverage sales.
Oh, the beverage, because they were saying food and beverage, so they get the food, we get the beverage.
Yeah, we get a rental fee from the food vendors.
I got it, okay. All right, thanks.
Consent?
Yeah.
3.4.
Approve host venue agreement between the city and Competitor Group, Inc. to conduct rock and roll running events in Clearwater, Florida for 5 years, beginning October 23rd through 25th, 2020, through October 2024. Approve an estimated cost of $4,000 of in-kind contributions to be included as a co-sponsored special event for fiscal year 2020-2021. What did I say?
You said
40,000. Sorry. Contributions to be included as a co-sponsored special event for fiscal year 2020-2021 operating budgets, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. Art Cater. I am the interim director of Parks and Recreation. The item that you have before you today is one that we normally would have brought to you in April or May of this year, because it basically is our co-sponsor agreement items and also budgets that we put in our operating budget. However, the city has been asked to partner with Competitive Group, Inc., or CGI, to put on or to offer to the citizens and others a world-class event, which is known as a rock and roll series event that they produce here in Clearwater in October of 2020. So because of that, we needed to come to you kind of ahead of that schedule. So that's why we're bringing this item to you now. Now, if this item is approved by the council, this race will actually replace one of the other races that we currently do, which is the Phil Daganero 3-Bridge Run that just held in October. That has been a very successful race for them, and I think that CGI wanted to actually trade dates. CGI does the Iron Girl event here in Clearwater, and they kind of wanted to change those dates out, and it was really not advantageous for Clearwater for Youth to do that. And so in the end, they have made an agreement with Clearwater for Youth to basically have that date. So that's why we're bringing it to you today. CGI runs, just for everyone, world-class events all over the world, including the Iron Man and the Iron Girl that was here. Scheduled for 2020, this race series, just to name a few of the places it'll be in, will be New Orleans, Santiago, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Madrid, Nashville, Atlantic City, Liverpool, Santiago. So you can see San Diego, not Santiago. Wrong place. And on and on. But the key thing here is what they want to do is they want to add Clearwater and the #1 beach to their schedule. They believe that's an offering. They are housed actually out of Tampa, so they're local, and so they want to add this to it. Now, the races they propose are similar to what, again, that the Phil Daganero race was. It's a 5K that would be offered on a Saturday morning at 7 a.m. And then on Sunday, I believe it's the 25th of October, they will offer the half marathon, which also starts at 7 a.m. The event itself, we're not sure how many will come. We do have a maximum on it, which would be 7,500 runners if we get that many. Probably the first year we won't. Again, we're a little bit behind the curve in advertising, putting it on their website and those types of things. The race course itself will be similar to or almost identical to all the other races that we've done. In other words, it's something, we're not creating a new race course. Everybody in Sand Key will be very happy because that means that one race will go away, which is the Iron Girl, which if you remember, it went all the way up Gulf Boulevard and turned around and came back Gulf Boulevard, which meant it was very difficult for those residents during that time. That will go away. The city will go down to only two events that will be half marathons rather than 3. The other thing is that the race will begin at Coachman Park and hopefully end at Coachman Park. If for some reason, because of Imagine Clearwater, it will then, they're looking at moving perhaps to Sand Key Park as a staging area. So hopefully, though, we will have construction such that this event can continue to be run out of there. It should be noted and pointed out, even if the council, this is the first step for them, because if the council approves this, they still have to get agreements from several municipalities, the county, FDOT, and others, so that the race can be run, because there's permits that they need to get in regard. We will try to help them with that, but they still need to get those. The Casey Smith, I believe, Executive Director of CFY, is here today, as well as Scott Langen, the Regional Director of Gulf Coast, is also here, and we're available to answer any questions you might have.
Casey's not here.
Casey's not here.
No,
Well, I guess I could, well, we could maybe have one of the board members speak for her if you have a question for the board, okay?
And any questions, Mr. Pugliese?
Thank you, Mayor. So I heard you mention that Sand Key might be a staging area. I should imagine Clearwater be under full-blown construction. What about the concert portion? I mean, because this is the rock and roll run, there's going to be concerts, I'm guessing, Friday night leading up, Saturday night as well, or?
I'm not sure how many concerts they have in this series, but you're right, it's more than just the 2 races. They have basically vendor areas and those types of things. They ask for spaces to do that. Most of that's outdoors.
Right.
We could certainly accommodate that as far as putting in stages and those types of things.
Well, but if Coachman Park, Coachman Commons is not available, are we considering Spectrum Fields? I mean, there's going to have to be arrangements and scheduling made, because I think currently the exception to the rule now is we've committed to having Jazz Holiday still occur at Coachman Park.
That is correct.
This
is 1 week after that, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it's 1 week
So that-
after that, so we're good this first year.
So probably all the events, the Hispanic Festival, the Jazz, and then this one can still take place if we're able to accommodate. Okay, I had one more question. Oh, and CFY, within this agreement, I understand that there's confidentiality between the 2 parties, but I wanted to make sure that CFY is a great organization, what they give back to the community and the youth, that they're not going to lose money in this deal, are they? As far as we know, they're made whole with this, because it seems like they're being.
Well, if I may, Mayor, as a board member of CFY, I can tell you that the CFY board is in full support of this. We are very happy with the, we think, you know, this is a great thing. CFY is, the agreement is very fair.
And then this is a not-to-exceed number, 40,000, and is that anticipated, could it be possibly lower? And that's for every year, not for the full 5 years?
This is, again, just the estimate for this year. Remember, this agreement is only that we pay 50%. I believe that it will hopefully be a little bit lower. We've already put together a budget, working with Chris Cook and some of the other agencies, certainly our police department and others. We've gotten estimates from them regarding the cost. I believe it's going to be less, but that's why I put 40 in, just in case, to be quite honest with you. But this item will be coming back, even if you approve it in April again as one of the listed events. We're also looking at those events because we have a new process where we're evaluating all of the requesters, so to speak. We have a committee now that's really evaluating, how many people come, what's the good for the community, those types of things. So perhaps the item we bring to you here in April may be either equal, less than, or maybe a little bit more as far as dollars. So we're not looking at necessarily, because this will replace the Free Bridge Run, so that total impact is, if we do exactly what we did last year, it'd be $28,000 more. We're hopeful that we can kind of absorb that within the list. That's what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
Ms. Aiken?
But in answer to your question, it is not a not-to-exceed amount. So if it does cost more, the agreement provides that we pay 50%.
Correct.
There is no not-to-exceed here.
Any other questions? Mr. Kondo?
Is it entirely in-kind contributions? Or is there any cash?
Yeah, no, there's no cash. It's all in kind, it's services basically.
Primarily staff time, this is the big number.
It's the staff time that does that, yes.
And
Also, the amounts are only approved 1 year at a time by you. So that for some reason, if it comes back, which it'll come back every year, and there's an issue, then, the council has the right to not approve it.
Mr. Hamel?
And I think I can assure you that, this 40,000 number is not one that is just thrown out there. This is based on an organization that does this in many different locales. We've done this, basically done this race, Clearwater's done this race. It has a little more, obviously with the Ironman involved, it has more attraction and bells and whistles, so therefore the things come up. So they know what those expenses are to do this. So this is I think this is a very good estimate. The fluctuation off that number would be minimal.
The other issues, if I may, Clearwater for Youth itself, I asked that they would give me some information that over the last, I think it's 3 to 5 years, they have contributed $454,000 to various youth groups in Clearwater, that they have helped fund those operations to keep kids basically into those, off the street, so to speak, and into these events and activities. They also, in addition, have given directly to the city of Clearwater to build infrastructure or buildings over $103,000. And then they also have a scholarship program where they've scholarshiped about $174,000 to the youth of Clearwater for college scholarships. So just so you know, that's just within a 5-year period. They turn all that money back, so that's over $750,000 that they put back into the city of Clearwater and the youth of Clearwater.
Mr. Albritton?
This is an economic boost for Clearwater because I know they aren't going to start out with probably 7,500 runners, but, they have, Clearwater has experience with the Ironman, and we, in the past, have had a lot of worldwide advertising for the event. And, you get 7,500 runners that come in from all over the world. The hotels get booked, the restaurants get booked. It's just a really good thing. A little inconvenience for people over 2 days, but big economic impact.
Yes.
Mr. Cater, thanks for giving us the information on what Clearwater for Youth has given back with the proceeds that it has from its many contributors and the programs that it benefits here in the area. So what you're saying is that they have an agreement now with this organization, and they will be getting additional money that they'll be able to plow back into the community.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
You threw me a little bit when you said that what we're approving today is for the race in October of this year.
Correct.
But you say you're going to come back in April.
No, it'll be part of that overall agenda item that we normally, I can take it off, but I wanted to show you all of the activities. Those are the ones where we have jazz holiday in there.
Right.
4th of July, all of
So
those.
it will be, we don't need to give you approval twice. Once we do it today, it will be okay for the organization.
That is correct. They can move forward with it.
Now, they also have to get approval from several of the other communities, I gathered. Is that?
That is correct. We
Okay,
need
so-
to get approval from Bel Air and
Right.
Bel Air Bluff,
And that's still outstanding.
That is correct.
Okay.
We've already contacted several of the communities, and they seem to be willing to work with us. They've already wanted to modify the routes a little bit, like through Bel Air, but we will work with them. Those are just some of the logistics that we have to work out.
Okay. Only because you said that they were based in Tampa, and since we're first up, yeah, it sure would be nice if they moved to Pinellas County and Clearwater.
I will suggest that. Scott, you hear that? Okay.
I wouldn't have said it except you brought it up, you know. So anyway, pass that on. Thank you, Scott, for being here. And I know the city will look forward to working with y'all. You know, as you look over the different communities that are here, I think that Clearwater is probably the smallest community on the list in terms of population. So that tells you, I guess, the respect that they have for us and the attraction that having a race, you know, over the three bridges. And to the Daganero family, I think all of us would say, you know, thank you for what Phil Daganero has meant to the entire Pinellas community and especially to Clearwater for Youth. So we'll keep this on consent, council?
Yes.
Mayor, I have one question.
Mr. Horn.
Yeah, we are looking and evaluating, as Art said, the number of races. There are races that we allow to happen in the city of Clearwater, but we aren't necessarily co-sponsoring those races. The question I have for you is, can you give us any feedback on what you're hearing from our residents? Are you hearing that we have too many, or are you hearing that they're occurring at the bad times? I'm just curious. I'm just trying to get a reaction from you all based on what you all are hearing. Because people like to do races, and we're constantly getting requests, and we tried to manage it. The only area I know where we've been very intentional is Sand Key. We have limited the number of races that will impact Gulf Boulevard based on feedback.
Mr. Warren, I was at an innkeepers meeting and this came up. There was a belief that, or at least a thought that we had too many races, that they were every week. And I'm sure you can tell us that they're not every week, maybe once a month. But as we had talked, we probably need to have a calendar that we have as a council, but also that the community has from a year out so that they can plan better and we can try to communicate better, especially with our hoteliers and our restaurants out on the beach that would be impacted and even the condos, so that they would at least have some idea, you know, more than a week or two ahead of time that this may be coming. I think that would be the best that we can do, and then try to limit it to no more than one a month or two a month at the most would be my thinking.
And I think,
Mr. Hamilton?
and I can speak as a restaurant owner out on the beach. The time of year is critical. You know, our high season times is not the time to have races out on the beach. It's very difficult when we have these races for our early shift workers to get to work. They get that, and then they're a little late getting to work. We understand that, you know, they're late because of a race, but it puts the preparation and the things that are necessary in our business behind schedule as well. So it does create an interruption. I can only speak for me and the restaurateurs I've talked to. We're willing to work with the city. We want these things. Some of them bring very good things, but you know, on Easter weekend, that's not the time to have a run out on Clearwater Beach. As many people may be unaware, you know, we have a whole nother 5K track or circuit where they do 5K runs out on the east side of town, and you know, we need to tell people, if you know, certain times of the year maybe, hey, if you're going to want to do a 5K at that time of year, you need to use this course, not going over the bridge and taking the causeway and the beach for use, you know, and just kind of say this is what we have to offer you. But you know, communication is key, making sure everybody's aware of it and they can do it. I mean, we've done a good job. We put the variable board up on the causeway that says race coming this weekend and things like that. But you know, it's, you know, the inconvenience is not insurmountable, I would say, so.
I say that too.
For your information, we actually approved 22 races last year, 22 races citywide. Of those, only 8 started in downtown and affected the beach, only 8 of those. 3 of them were the big ones that we're talking about, the half marathons. But if you approve this, basically, it'll go down to 2. So we will only have 2. That's what we're like to set as our goal, just the 2. One that's held in January and this one that's held in October as far as the large races. The smaller races, as Councilmember Hamilton said, they're run on Drew Street, they're run on the basically Reem Wilson Trail and some of the other smaller races.
Just to conclude, Mr. Hamilton, help me out here. The timing is important. If it starts at 7 o'clock in the morning and it's finished by noontime, the impact probably isn't as great as something in the mid-afternoon.
Well, I mean, obviously, the race itself, really, to be honest with you, the inconvenience is the race only inconveniences about an hour. I mean, 7 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the morning. For a 5K, because you've got a few people just walking, it takes about an hour to walk and clear the causeway. But, and the police do a great job of, once you get down to where it's just the walkers, they can move them into one lane of traffic and then they can move, have cars going in one of the lanes and keep them separated. But you don't really have anything that goes till noon. But I'll tell you, there was an uproar last weekend when there was a race at 5 o'clock in the evening on a Saturday. Now, we didn't have 80-degree weather, but if we'd had 80-degree weather, we'd have had bumper-to-bumper traffic trying to get to the beach at 5 o'clock on a Saturday. And, how are you going to run a race? I mean, 5 o'clock on a Saturday is not a conducive time for a run, going to the beach, period.
Okay. Consent on agenda item 3.4?
Yes.
4.1.
Approve the final plat for Aspen Trail, whose physical address is 3474 Aspen Trail and located south of Curlew Road and east of US 19. Mr. Mahoney.
Morning, Council. Tom Mahoney, Engineering Department. This plat will create 33 single-family lots. The entire site consists of 24.5 acres with a approximate 10.5 acre water feature or lake. This was approved through DRC on June 6th of 2019. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on 4.1? Consent?
Yes.
4.2.
Approve the final plat for Santorini Trace, whose physical address is 1501 South Highland Avenue and located on the southeast corner of Nursery Road and Highland Avenue. Mr. Mahoney again.
This plat will create 52 townhome lots. There will be 8 residential buildings in addition to a community structure, community building with a pool area. This was approved through DRC on July 3rd of 2019 and again through CDB on August 8th of 2019. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of staff on 4.2?
I have one.
Mr. Robles.
Thank you, Mayor. On South Highland, is our sewer and is our infrastructure already set up to be able to accommodate 52 new services?
Yes, it is. It has been approved through our engineering department as well. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that shopping center is, thanks, Mr. Poblaste, because, that part of Clearwater, a lot of it is unincorporated. And then you come to this property and the shopping center that's there, that's in the city of Clearwater. So I appreciate, so we have lines that go down that far.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, okay. Council, the only question I would have here is if they had called it Sparta Trace as opposed to Santorini Trace. Mr. Albritton.
There's been, I'm surprised that this has been a lot for so long. I mean, I can remember probably 15 years ago, there was some development that was planned on that. It's never happened.
I'm not aware of one that was ever planned.
Okay.
Mr. Hamilton.
I can say, I don't know how many of you saw it, but there was an uproar on Facebook this weekend, or late in the week, over the weekend, because this lot just got cleared.
Oh, the trees.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, they took down some, you got laurel oaks, you got live oaks, you got all this. But, I mean, they cleared it to be able to do what they're doing. But, what some people, don't understand or don't want to understand is somebody owns this lot and it has certain development rights, and they want to take advantage and use those development rights. But we do have a landscaping requirement when they do the development that will replace a lot of that. It's not going to, you're not going to be replacing, 40-foot oak trees or, 20, 30-foot oak trees or anything immediately, but they have a landscape requirement, and I'm sure they will meet it, or we will not give them, we won't sign off on the project when it's time. But there was quite the uproar over it getting cleared.
The owners of this property, I think, did Montclair Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And laurel oaks our arborist isn't here, but the laurel oaks are the ones that have a very short lifetime, right? Yeah, so.
There were a couple
30 years.
oak trees that were very, very nice, but, when you're gonna do a development, sometimes that tree doesn't sit in the right place, and it's very difficult to, design around it, so.
Yeah, they are required to do quite a bit of landscaping
Exactly.
for replacement of those trees they removed.
Consent?
Yeah.
4.3.
Approve the conveyance of a distribution easement at Duke Energy Florida LLC, DBA Duke Energy, for the installation, operation, and maintenance of electric facilities to support Duke's new transformer and facility installation at 3060 North McMullen Booth Road, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Burzak.
Morning, Robert Burzak, Real Estate Coordinator. The proposed easement will provide Duke Energy with property rights necessary to construct and maintain its electric equipment within the easement to serve city's countryside sports complex. Any questions?
Any questions of staff on agenda item 4.3? Consent?
Yep.
4.4.
Declare surplus certain city-owned real property located at 1730 Overbrook Avenue for the purpose of entering into a ground lease with Jolly Trolley Transportation of Clearwater, Inc. for development and lease of the site. Approve the related ground lease agreement between Jolly Trolley Transportation of Clearwater, Inc. and the City of Clearwater, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Burzak, again.
Thank you. The city acquired a 4.1 acre site on the southwest corner of Overbrook Avenue and Betty Lane on November 9th, 2002 for $750,000. The site was acquired for the Stephenson Creek Estuary Restoration Project and to build a new Fire Station 51. The Stephenson Creek Estuary project was completed and the new Fire Station 51 has been built on the east 1.6 acres of the Overbrook Avenue site. The remaining 2.5 acres of the unimproved land on the west side, the site isn't being utilized for municipal purposes. Jolly Trolley Transportation of Clearwater requested the 2.5 acre site be declared surplus for the purpose of a long-term ground lease with the City of Clearwater. Jolly Trolley intends to build a new corporate complex on the site. An independent appraisal was performed by Jim Millspawn Associates on the 2.5 acre site and was determined to have a $450,000 fair market value as of January 17, 2019. The initial term of the proposed ground lease agreement between Jolly Trolley and the City of Clearwater shall be 25 years commencing on the date of the execution of the lease. Jolly Trolley has an option to renew the lease agreement for up to 3 successive additional 5 years period upon the same terms and conditions of the original ground lease. Jolly Trolley agrees to pay annual rent and monthly installments as follows. For the first 10 years shall be $0. At the end of the year 10 should be 50% market rental rate. At the end of year 17, the annual rate shall be calculated at 100% of the market rental rate. Any questions?
Any questions of staff on agenda item 4.4? Explain to us again what happens if for some reason the city decides that it needs the property at a later date?
If the city needs the property for municipal use, then the contract can be terminated, I believe, with 12 months.
And do we have, if Jolly Trolley has made improvements, then we get those improvements at no cost to the city?
Correct.
That's not correct. We will do an appraisal. There's an appraisal methodology in the lease, and they will get fair market value at such time as the lease is terminated.
Okay. And what if, and this one is not a question that I hope will happen, but if Jolly Trolley ceases to be in existence for whatever reason, what happens to the building and the property then?
Well, there'll be bonding for the construction, so that will be assured to occur. And if they default by the dissolution or otherwise, then we take control of the improvements, the city.
This will be on our agenda for Thursday night, February the 6th. Agenda item 4.5.
Approve the conveyance of a distribution easement to Duke Energy Florida LLC, DBA Duke Energy, for the installation, operation, and maintenance of electric facilities to support Duke's new infrastructure installation west of South Gulfview Boulevard, Clearwater Beach, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Brzak again.
The proposed easement will provide Duke Energy with property rights necessary for the construction and maintenance of its electrical equipment within the easement to serve Clearwater Beach. Questions?
Questions on 4.5? Mr. Hamilton?
I guess my question, what is it they need to be building here? And, we have this thing that's known as the Coastal Construction Control Line that doesn't allow any construction westward of that line. Is all of this east of that line? I'm.
I can answer that. Excuse me, Laura Mahoney, Assistant City Attorney. I didn't introduce myself before, sorry. They need to abide by all of the restrictions and the law and pull their permits and do everything that they need to do. So, no, they cannot violate the law.
Oh, Tom Mahoney, this is eastward of the coastal construction control line.
Okay. That's what I was saying.
And exactly what are they going to be doing?
There is a new development being proposed, or currently being reviewed, that is, I believe, on the corner of Gulfview Boulevard and 5th. And they will need to upgrade some of the power to service the new construction.
So is it going to disrupt traffic or other customers?
No, this will all be directional drill, and a lot of it is just upgrading existing lines. But they will be providing a new service to this particular location.
And it's going to be underground?
Directional drill, yes, of course.
Okay. Consent? Thanks. 5.1.
Authorize an increase of $116,913 to purchase order 2000118 to Municipal Equipment Company LLC, Orlando, Florida, to fund the outfitting of personnel with appropriate personal protective equipment, increasing the not-to-exceed amount from $138,087 to $255,000 for the period of October 2019 through June 30th, 2020, with a possible 2 one-year renewal options at an annual amount not to exceed $255,000 pursuant to Clearwater Code of Ordinances, Section 2.564B, other governmental bid, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Chief Ellis.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Scott Ellis, Fire Chief, Clearwater Fire Rescue. Again, this item before you is to request the authorization to increase the purchase order to municipal equipment of $116,913,000. This will increase the not-to-exceed amount from $138,087 to $255,000 for the period of October 3rd, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. Previously, the department had a multi-year contract with another vendor where several concerns were identified towards the end of that contract, one of them being significant increase compared to other vendors. So when the contract expired September 30th, 2019, the department sought other vendors out, municipal being one of them, for a competitive pricing and ability to provide PPE in a timely manner. The original that we came in October for the $138,087 requested was to fulfill the outputting of the 10 new recruits that we had here to get them on board, plus some major ones that we had to take care of. The original request did not, however, take consideration for the remaining replacement that we had to do for the rest of the year. Therefore, we respectfully request the increase to $255,000. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff on 5.1? Where would the funding be coming from, Chief?
Is it already in a CIP project? The funding's already there. We have the funding on that aspect.
We were wondering how you were able to bring in all those new recruits from other departments, other than the fact that our department is probably the best in the area.
I agree.
I didn't know whether you offered them something else. So obviously, you were offering them new equipment, right?
Yes.
Consent?
Yes.
5.2.
Authorize a purchase order to the vendors identified below in the cumulative annual not to exceed amount of $50,000 to provide fire clothing and equipment for the initial term, February 15, 2020 through February 14, 2021, with 2 one-year renewal options pursuant to City of Clearwater's invitation to bid 05-20 fire clothing and equipment, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Chief Ellers again.
Again, good morning, Council. Scott Ellers, Fire Chief, Clearwater Fire Rescue. This item before you is for a purchase order to North American Fire Equipment Company, Inc. and Signal 15, Inc. In a cumulative annual not to exceed the amount of $50,000 to provide fire clothing and equipment. This request is for the members' departmental uniforms, not the PPE, which was the previous one. The regular uniform items covered by the labor contract. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on 5.2? Consent? 6.1.
Declare surplus and authorize disposition of identified vehicles and equipment via auction to the highest bidder pursuant to Clearwater Code of Ordinances Section 2.622 surplus personal property, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Conzen.
Good morning, Perry Conzen, Fleet Manager. The vehicle listed below was wrecked in December and deemed a total loss by risk. The generators listed below have been turned into fleet by various departments and have been deemed obsolete or worn. These generators will not be replaced, as some of the projects were such that multiple generators were replaced by a single generator.
Any questions on 6.1? The whoever was driving the vehicle that was totaled, hopefully he's okay or she's
He's
okay.
okay. It was an officer, and they're okay. They didn't even have a chance to stop.
Consent?
Yep.
6.2.
Authorize a purchase order to multiple vendors as listed for various floor repairs and replacements in the amount of $500,000 for the period January 1, 2020 through September 30th, 2020, and the annual not to exceed amount of $500,000 for fiscal year 2021 through the expiration of respective contract or through the end of fiscal year 2023, whichever comes first, for a not to exceed amount of $2 million for the total period, per Clearwater Code of Ordinances Section 2.5641B, sole source, and 2.5641D, other government entities contracts, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Wyke.
Good morning, Tom Wyke, Building Maintenance Superintendent. Staff is requesting the ability to piggyback the contract for Shaw Industries, Milliken & Company, and a sole source to complete floor care solutions for various flooring projects throughout the city for the duration of the respective contract.
Any questions on 6.2? Consent? 6.3.
Authorize a purchase order to multiple vendors as listed for various roof repairs and replacements in the amount of $500,000 for the period January 1, 2020 through September 30th, 2020, and annual not to exceed amount of $500,000 for fiscal year 2021 through the expiration of respective term of the contract or through the end of fiscal year 2024, whichever comes first, for a not to exceed amount of $2,500,000 for the total period pursuant to Clearwater Code of Ordinances Section 2.5641D, other government entities, contracts, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Wykew again.
Tom Wykew, Building and Maintenance. Staff is requesting the ability to piggyback contracts for quality roofing, Garland DBS, and advanced roofing for various roofing projects throughout the city for duration of the respective contract. Questions?
Any questions on 6.3? When we have to do roof replacements, do we look at more efficient materials, or do we just replace in kind?
No, we use efficient materials, and we also look at the insulation characteristics, and many times we're tearing off the insulation substrate beneath the roofing material itself, so we look at all those measures.
Consent?
Yes.
6.4.
Authorize a purchase order to L&T Brothers, Inc., DBA Lowe's, for various interior and exterior painting in the amount of $225,000 for the period of February 1, 2020 through September 30th, 2020, and the annual not-to-exceed amount of $300,000 for fiscal year 2021 through July 16, 2023, for a total not-to-exceed amount of $1,125,000 for the 42-month period per Clearwater Code of Ordinances, Section 2.5641D, other government entities, contracts, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Wykew again.
Tom Wykew, Building and Maintenance. Staff is requesting the ability to piggyback existing contract for L&T Brothers Incorporated, DBA Lowe's, for various painting projects throughout the city for the duration of the contract.
Mr. Hamilton?
Is this just for the materials, or does this include the labor as well?
Labor as well.
Okay.
Any other questions? Is this Lowe's, or is this?
It's not the Lowe's store.
Okay. That's what I was hoping you were going to answer. I was holding my breath.
It is not.
Okay. Consent?
Yes.
Not that I have anything against Lowe's, but it would be nice to have a smaller business getting the city's business. 6.5.
Authorize a purchase order to Overhead Door of Clearwater, Florida, for various maintenance, repair, and replacement and new overhead doors in the amount not to exceed amount of $350,000 from January 1, 2020 through May 24, 2021, pursuant to Clearwater Code of Ordinances, Section 2.5641D, other government entities, contracts, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Wykew again.
Tom Wykew, Building and Maintenance. Staff is requesting the ability to piggyback existing contract for overhead doors of Clearwater, Florida, for various door projects throughout the city for the duration of the respective contract.
Mr. Albritton?
These are just the overhead doors, like garage door kind of things?
Yes, it's the maintenance of the doors that occur monthly maintenance as well as replacements of many of these doors.
You got an estimate about how many doors we're talking about?
About 86.
That's a pretty good estimate. Right on the- Thank you.
And hopefully it's none of the new fire doors that we bought, because we upgraded those, correct?
That's actually a different company that Overhead does not maintain some of those. It's Florida Door Solutions, I believe,
Okay.
does the fancy door.
Okay. Consent? I'm sorry, Mr. Condon.
I'm just going to ask, and this is already in the budget.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, thanks.
Consent? 6.6.
Authorize a purchase order to multiple vendors as listed for various plumbing replacement and repair parts in the annual not to exceed amount of $375,000 for contract term January 15th, 2020 through the expiration of their respective term of contract or January 15, 2022, whichever occurs first, for a total not to exceed amount of $750,000 for the 2-year period pursuant to Clearwater Code of Ordinances, Section 2.5641C, small dollar purchases, and Section 2.5641D, other government entities, contracts, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Wykew for the last time.
I'm Wykew, Building and Maintenance. Staff is requesting the ability to use existing piggyback contracts for Tampa Wind Supply, Ferguson Enterprises, Wool Supply of Tampa, Hughes Supply, and Best Plumbing Specialties for various plumbing projects throughout the city for the duration of the respective contract.
Any questions on 6.6? Mr. Poglaze.
Thank you. Mayor, quick question. So, building and maintenance, we take care of our properties. I mean, this is a combined effort at $7 million. Most of them are 2 to 3 year contracts. We have found that by negotiating these contracts 2 to 3 years, we're getting a better price as opposed to piecemeal. I mean, it's important to know that citizens have confidence that this is the best deal we can get, and the average price is $7 million to take care of all of our properties here. And that's not to exceed. It could be less than that.
Right.
Okay. Thank
Any
you.
other questions, Council? Consent?
Yep.
7.1, Ms. Call.
Appoint to the Air Park Advisory Board Kelly O'Donnell as a regular member with a term to expire December 31st, 2023. Bruce Brock as the ex officio member with a term to expire February 29, 2024. And appoint one member with a term effective May 1st, 2020 through May 1st, 2024. Council members, if you remember not too long ago, we created the ex officio position to accommodate Ms. O'Donnell, who has recently moved into the city of Clearwater, and then one of our members moved out, so that is why you see Ms. O'Donnell and Mr. Brock switching their positions, but we also have one membership to be filled.
Any questions of staff on,
And there's two individuals, I'm sorry, that for
Right.
your consideration, so Bobby Gibson and John Renton. And Mr. Renton has some background, so he's the airport program manager.
okay. So what you're saying is that Kelly O'Donnell will be appointed to the board, and then we need a replacement for Ms. Rosenberger?
Yes.
Okay. And the options for that appointment is either Mr. Gibson or Mr. Retton?
Correct.
Okay. Counsel? Mr. Retton is airport program manager?
Yes, so he's got some background
Yeah.
that,
I like that.
He's got a lot of experience and he's worked at 3 different hub type airports and I think he'd be very good.
Good choice.
To put him and Ms. O'Donnell on consent, and then Mr. Brock is the ex officio?
yes.
Okay, is that okay for consent, council?
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Gibson's very good too, but hopefully Mr. Gibson will be in line for the next.
Next time around. Okay. 7.2,
Appoint Danny Olda to the Public Art and Design Board as the Creative Pinellas designee with term to expire February 28, 2024. Council members, it is the only individual up for consideration, and it's the organization's representative.
consent. 7.3,
Appoint one member to the Community Development Board with term to expire February 28, 2024. Council members, this position will be replacing Mr. Flannery, who was serving on the board, and he is willing to be reappointed. He currently finished his first term, but we also had quite a few individuals who were interested in serving. So for your consideration as well, we have Chelsea Allison, David J., Peter Kohut, and William Fisher.
but
Yeah.
Mr. Flannery's seeking appointment to his second term, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Consent?
For Mr. Flannery's second term.
I mean, I know Mr. Fisher very well, and I know he's very interested in serving. I know Mr. Flannery, I know we normally, if they've done one term and they get they want to be reappointed, we are. Do we have, like, any attendance issues or anything at all?
Mr. Flannery did miss 2 absences during this past year.
Okay. 'Cause, I mean, I would be, I think Bill Fisher would be an outstanding member of this, for this board, given his experience and lived here all of his life and his business experiences.
Just so that council has an understanding in terms of the current makeup, we currently have 1 administrative specialist, an assistant professor, 2 architects, 2 attorneys, 2 civil engineers, and 1 real estate broker. So that's the current makeup, just so you keep that in mind.
Mr. Albrecht?
Yeah, I kind of agree. Bill Fisher is highly qualified. He's done a lot of things for our community. He's designed a lot of buildings here. I think he would have a real good understanding of the things that come up at the Community Development Board. So I would support having him fill that position. I think it would be very good for us.
But council, that puts 3 architects on the board, and it takes away an engineer. You know, our policy in the past has been that we reappoint somebody who is, you know, up for reelection unless they've done something that, you know, or has missed a lot of meetings. And I'm sorry, I cannot, you know, granted, Mr. Fisher's been, you know, a stalwart in the community, but just because we may not agree with some of the positions that Mr. Flannery has taken, he does fit the mold of the diversity that we want on our council, on this board.
I can bring it back on Thursday if council's not ready for
Well,
direction.
I think I might need a little more time to look.
Okay.
My computer crashed, by the way,
Okay.
since the meeting started. So I would like a little more time and have it brought back Thursday so I can look at it.
All right, we'll have this on the agenda for Thursday night. 7.4.
Appoint Marita Lynch to the Environmental Advisory Board to fill the remainder of an unexpired term through December 31st, 2021. Council members, Ms. Lynch was the only applicant that we had on file, and she recently served on the Charter Review Committee and is interested in being appointed.
Consent?
And
7.5.
reappoint Mary Lane to the Nuisance Abatement Board with term to expire February 28, 2024. Council members, Ms. Lane has been serving on the Nuisance Abatement Board, and they will be actually meeting for the first time this year, Wednesday. Ms. Lane has been serving and is eligible to be reappointed for her second term, and she's willing as well.
Consent? Yep. 8.1 are second readings, 8.2 is a second reading, 8.3 is a second reading, 8.4 is a second reading. Any questions on the second readings? Okay, agenda item 9.1, Mr. Horn.
Yes, Mr. Cater's going to talk about Coachman Park renaming, or is it Mr. Delk? I don't know which one.
Well,
Either one.
either one.
Well, Mr. Delk, go ahead.
Yeah, Michael Delk, Assistant City Manager. We met with the Parks Board at their regular scheduled meeting last week, and while we do not have had the opportunity yet to obtain the minutes of that meeting, I think it's suffice to say that after having presented them really kind of the whole concept of what the activation of the park will look like, we really did not get their support consistent with their earlier consideration of renaming the park Coachman Commons. So, I think here's what I'll say about that as we ask you for your direction is that we are getting very close to issuing the RFQs, so we're going to be marketing the Bluff properties. I think it would be nice, if we had a chance to really start, whatever that branding is going to be, even if it stays the same, is to get that incorporated when we start doing things that may be regionally or nationally significant in terms of the marketing and reaching out to the development community and so on. So we can, it's not a matter that is inherently urgent right now necessarily. We can, delay further consideration of it at this time and think about bringing it back. We can prepare an ordinance or resolution, as the case may be, to bring it back for council's consideration if you want to have a decision-making opportunity at it on a Thursday where we can provide public notice and discuss it there for a final resolution. And so we'll await your direction unless, Art, you want any comments as well. So
The only comment I would make is obviously they have already in their past meeting, basically, rejected that name. They, as you know, they gave advice that they wanted to go out to the community, have a contest, allow people to give names and those types of things, which obviously could be done. However, it would take an effort to do that and time to do that as well. And that's something that could occur, but that's what they suggested. Again, there were many people, or several people, half a dozen people that spoke against this. I think there was a time when we actually did, at a previous meeting, have people that did come up and talk about the park individually and the park name. Many people are very concerned about Coachman Park, although we've left Coachman in the name. Mr. Dell did a good job of sharing that, and the reason why we thought that was important to keep that name in the park. But that's really the only comments. I don't think they're going to change the board mind in that regard, but that's where we are.
Mr. Pugliese.
Thank you, Mayor. I am a big supporter. I like it. I get it. I think you're spending $64 million. A new name is a good idea. However, with the new council being seated in 6 to 7 weeks, and I'm considering, and for myself, putting this off and let the new council decide, because it is a community, apparently, hotspot, and we need to embrace the community. They need to embrace this as much as we have, 100%. And if it's a simple thing like the name, and that gets the buy-in that we need, additional buy-in going forward, I'm, I guess, willing to wait and let the new council make the final. Since you said it wasn't critically imperative that we do this right away.
Mr. Pugliese, I'm not going to disagree with what you're saying, but I'm going to disagree with the way you said it.
Okay.
Okay? Because we've been lame ducks for years, you know, and just because our term is almost up doesn't mean that we stop making decisions.
Right.
And putting it off to the new council. Everything that we've discussed so far, you know, impacts the future. And using your theory, then we shouldn't be voting on any of this. So, you know, but I will agree that since it's not critical, I don't want to have a contest, because then you risk losing the name Coachman. And I don't think any of us have said, get rid of Coachman. And so for the people out in the community saying that council wants to change the name or drop the name of Coachman, no one has ever said that or ever suggested that. But we are trying to make a park, to rebrand the park, to make it inviting for the entire community. And I think that's why you and I both sort of felt like Commons embraced a wider scope of what, you know, that meant. Right. But I think it's also important that we, again, you know, start doing things at the park so that the public will see that we've got, you know, shovels in the ground and are doing things as opposed to just talking. So that's why I would suggest that, you know, let's do so. Then it may have more appeal, because I think Coachman Commons is the right way to go, despite some of the comments that all of us have heard. Mr. Hamilton.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, as you said, nobody's ever suggested taking the Coachman name off of this. And I'll make a prediction. We can go through a naming contest. We can go through anything you want to do, but this area has been known as Coachman Park for generations. It's going to still be called Coachman Park by most people, period. It just is. No matter what process we want to go through, ultimately, I think people are still going to refer to it as Coachman Park, because it's been known as, that's what it's been known as for generations. And, you know, if we want to try and tweak it a little bit, we can go through that exercise. But like I said, I think ultimately people are still going to refer to it as Coachman Park.
Mr. Albritton.
And, you know, I've given this a lot of thought. When you first came up with Coachman Commons, I kind of like the idea of changing the name and the bigger name. But, you know, I went to all the presentations that we did for Imagine Clearwater and the name change. I actually ran into Mr. Coachman at the mall, and he didn't like the name Commons. So I kind of agree, you know, from what I've heard from most people, hey, I don't have a problem just keeping it Coachman Park. But, you know, that's something I think we need to talk about. And
Mr. Kondo.
I tend to disagree with you a little bit. I think the public would like to offer some alternatives. It doesn't mean we have to choose any of those alternatives, but it would give them some input. And if it's not urgent, I think we ought to form some type of community naming, or at least alternative namings. I'm not against keeping it the same also.
Okay?
What, do we know what we're doing?
That's clear as mud.
Yeah.
We're all over the map.
Just let it ride for right now.
So that's the consensus?
Well, I mean, they can come back at a later date if you want to come up,
I would, I guess the Parks and Rec Board, what would be the recommendation? What kind of contest, or what are the parameters of it, or anything like that? It's just, and how long do they want to, how long is it going to take? Because, I mean, we need to make some decisions, and as, I'm a lame duck too, because I've only got 2 years left, but,
yeah, sure.
But, it's, we've got to dial this thing down and get it locked in so that when we start moving forward, everybody's, using, working off the same sheet. So, I don't know.
I'll mention what I told the Parks Board. I think, well, one is just to comment on the contest. Fraught with peril may be too strong a term, but I really, and you all know how kind of committed I've been to the public engagement through this entire process. I mean, we have really tried to, engage the community on anything to do with the park. But you can ask 1,000 people, and get 1,000 different names on the park. So I'm really kind of concerned about the whole idea of the contest, and just, I think we kind of need to maybe think about narrowly where we're going and if we're comfortable with something. And what I told the Parks Board was that I think that, the Coachman Commons, that's not necessarily anything sacred about that. But if you look at the numbers from the feedback we got, it was like the score was 1.9. And yes, that was probably one of the lowest marks that we had going through that process. But on the other hand, 1.9 represents around 60% of the people we talked to were either neutral or ambivalent, if you will, or in favor of the renaming. So there were about a third of that people were just outright, no, don't name it that. We don't like it. So, frankly, if, in a lot of things, from a vote standpoint, if you get 60% of, either neutral or in favor, that's not an altogether, risky place to be necessarily. So I think we have the option, although I think the Coachman Commons is a real marketable branding kind of concept, that we could do a lot of work with that from a marketing and really to our benefit. But, do I think it's, again, do I think it's sacred that, we couldn't do the same thing? Let's just leave it Coachman Park and be done with it. I think the answer to that is, is yes, we could do that. So it may just depend on how much we want to move the needle on the park with a rebranding and a, really not eliminating the Coachman name at all because of the historic nature of it, but really kind of shifting our gears from a marketing and a rebranding standpoint. I think that's kind of our priority consideration.
Mr. Puglaze.
Thank you, Mayor. Didn't we take a vote on this already? Did we take a vote on this? It was.
I don't think so.
Well, we gave approval at some point to go forward, just because.
Yes.
Yeah, to move.
Yeah, to move
Okay,
forward
so
and to get the park.
the traffic calming program, I think, requires 60%, and that's major changes in a neighborhood, and we go forward with the project if you get 60%. We get 60% for this. We gave you authority initially. If the new council comes in 6 weeks, 7 weeks, whatever that time frame may be, and they feel so inclined to, you need to go forward with marketing to RFQ the properties. For me, Coachman Commons is it. That's it.
Mr. Albritton.
Well, and I've said this before, people we're gonna have naming rights for the Performance Pavilion and for specific things down there, and people are gonna actually call it. I mean, when you go to, you say, let's go to Ruth Eckerd. You don't say, let's go to the Bumgardner Performing Arts Center. I mean, I don't think anybody knows it by that name. It's specific names that So you're gonna have that. I mean, and I don't, nothing wrong with commons. People say, hey, let's go down to the park or the
Well, it's an
common.
area. Coachman
It's an
Commons
area.
refers to the whole thing.
So I think I know we've had pushback, you know, we've had the guy come in with his boom box and play the magical mystery tour and everybody, you're right, everybody's got an idea on it. And I don't think that, I think that we should be moving forward on it. And I like the rebranding, either Coachman Commons, Coachman Park is fine with me, so.
Yeah.
Did I
So-
narrow that down?
One of
So
the
do we want to
ideas-
have a vote Thursday night on going forward formally with Coachman Commons? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm okay with voting Thursday.
Like I said, I'm 100% committed to the Coachman name remaining staying there. Calling the entire area Coachman Commons, I'm very comfortable with. And we can change it to Coachman Commons, and the younger generation, as they grow, will get to know it as Coachman Commons. The older generation, like myself, are gonna still call it Coachman Park.
Coachman Park at Coachman Commons.
No, I'm just gonna say Coachman Park.
Coachman Commons refers to the
It'll
whole
be-
block,
the signage will
right?
say, well, Coachman Commons or whatever, but in the branding of it, but.
Mr. Delk, help us out here. You want to be able to market the whole Imagine Clearwater as Coachman Commons.
Whatever we call it, we're going to market the property, the waterfront, the bluff properties as opportunities for development and engaging public-private partnerships to activate the edge of the park. So yeah, whatever we call it, we're going to use that as part of our marketing and branding.
Can y'all come up with a resolution that says that doesn't necessarily change the park portion to, I know it's for your marketing, you want to call it Coachman Commons.
Well, I think,
Yes.
yes.
Yes, okay. Yes, am I correct?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So can we have some sort of a resolution along those lines?
You are renaming the area Coachman Commons.
Yes.
The area.
Okay.
The area, for marketing.
Well, you're either renaming it or you're not. So you're doing a resolution and you're going to name that whole area Coachman Commons. You can retain Coachman Park within Coachman Commons if you wish to do that. Because the Coachman Park area is actually a relatively small area.
That makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
you got it.
Thank you.
Can you do it for Thursday, or you want to do it for the following meeting? Following meeting?
If our next step is to prepare a resolution,
Okay.
then let us bring that to you at the following meeting.
Okay. Okay, so we won't do it Thursday night. We will do it instead of
Next
February the 6th, we will do it on February the 20th. Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
That was actually easy when you think about it.
Yeah. Mr. Horn, do you have anything further for
No,
us?
Mayor, I do not.
Ms. Aiken, do you have anything for us?
No, sir.
Agenda item 11.1, Mr. Cundiff.
Yes, thank you. I remember in my mind, somebody from the Department of Transportation came to one of our council meetings and said that the solution to our traffic problems, which we all agree we have some, is to go to the third dimension. And I always liked the way he said that, and he meant elevated transportation. And about 4 years ago, I heard about SkyTran and its personal elevated rapid transit concept. And since then, Beach-Tran has emerged, which is a local company, now has 10 owners, and they've already committed about $500,000 and are ready to commit another $1 million. They've put money down on a piece of property here in Clearwater. And this is a system that has been, some NASA engineers developed this system, and are developing the system. They're building a test track right now, full-scale test track. They have support from both Oldsmar and Pasco County on what I'm proposing today on this resolution. And I'll just mention a couple of things. The cost to the city would be zero. The cost to the taxpayers would be zero. It is funded entirely by private investments. The resolution is not asking for an endorsement. It's asking for an encouragement. Not asking for private-public partnership. And it's not a proposal for a system. But Beach-Tran needs the encouragement through this resolution, and also needs information from the city in order to move toward a proposal down the road. And so, for example, where across the bridge should this system go? This system could end up being a statewide national system if it picks up. There are many places in the city and the county that are already interested in it. And if it is successful, I think it ought to be successful first here. India, a billionaire in India, has put money into the system. Tel Aviv would like a system. Abu Dhabi and Yas Island would like 2 systems. We are in line because of Beach-Tran to have the first system in basically the Western Hemisphere. I'm going to show you a video, if you would please, thank you, of a artist's conception. This is a system that's solar powered and propelled by by, well, if you think of the Japanese bullet train in miniature, elevated 20 to 30 feet in the air. All right, that's my say. What say you?
So you're asking us to approve this resolution?
Yes. Resolution of encouragement and assistance.
Mayor?
And I
I'm
would
sorry,
say
Mr.
assistance with
Hamilton.
information.
Well, I do, and I know that you said there was no cost to the city, but in the resolution, it says requesting city staff to assist with all necessary studies to identify rights of way for elevated guideways and locate. Staff assistance costs money, because you're taking staff away from other areas of focus to do this. So there is cost involved. And my position on Beach Tran, SkyTran, whatever you want to call it, you know, they've been marketing this as privately owned, privately operated, and a profitable transit system. Congratulations if they can do it, because it would be the first profitable transit system in the world, period. My position on this has always been and always will be, if they can do it with their own money, I have no problem helping, you know, trying to help to the best of my ability with locations and right-of-way and things of that nature. But I also, especially with the Clearwater Phase 1, I would require these investors to have enough money in an escrow account that if and when this proves to not be a profitable enterprise, because like I said, no transportation system in the world is a profitable enterprise. And when this proves it's not profitable and their investors start pulling back, there's money in escrow, not for us to operate it, because I'm not going to put the cost of operating another transit system on the backs of the people of Clearwater, but the money in escrow would be there to take the system down. So that's where I am, because I'm just not convinced that this is a profitable enterprise. And I'm not, you know, it looks great, but again, there's not one picture in that presentation, Dr. Cundiff, and I'm sorry, but there's not one picture in there that is of real existing stuff. It's just not proven, and I'm not sure Clearwater needs to be the guinea pig for it, especially if there's any community or Clearwater money having to be used for it. I'm not sure we're at that point.
Mr. Pogles.
It says also in the resolution, we'll share relevant information to facilitate the timely completion of future engineering studies and determine what further steps will be necessary. At one point in the Imagine Clearwater project and the whole process, we had approved, and refresh my memory, we had approved additional monies to study landings and stuff like that for gondolas or something. Did that ever get finished? Was there information accumulated from that, or did that?
It was during the Imagine Clearwater planning effort. No, that we.
I remember there were conversations about doing a study, and there was a request for additional funding to study where possible anchor landing points would be. Did that not happen? So there's no data.
We pulled the plug on that particular phase for various reasons, and reallocated that to some additional public engagement at some point.
Okay. But I got to tell you, the present pipe dream or not, I mean, there's technology there. I love the presentation. I think it would be great. We need it in Clearwater. However, the same concerns that Hoyt has, I have as well. It says also on the back part of the page, Beach Tran has proposed and expected to commission at its sole expense initial engineering studies necessary to design an optimal system between downtown. So they're going to pay for designing the system, all engineering, construction costs are gonna be remedied through what they're going to raise, private funding. The question is, I mean, what actually then do they want the city to do? Do we want to encourage them to go forward? Yeah. Yeah, keep going. Try to do what you're trying to do. But I mean, it's not clear to me what they're asking. City staff to assist with all necessary studies. What studies? If they're going to pay for the studies, because they're going to, at their expense, what do they really want us to do at this point?
If I could answer that, the city has certain information about its property. Number one, the city would have preferences on where stations would be. The city would have information about the bridges, so that when, and where across the bridge, the city would want a system like that. And until the city gives them that information, it's really impossible for them to put together a proposal.
Mr. Albert?
I've been following this for probably 4 years, Beach-Tran, and it sounds really exciting. I think it's great that we have that here in Clearwater, and I think the whole SkyTran thing be nice. I've always thought that Clearwater could be one of the first to get this. But my concern, as always, and I've been telling Tom this, that, I actually want to see, I'm a kind of touchy-feely guy, I want to, show me how this works. And I know they're behind schedule now. That last summer they were supposed to have a test trap, and I was going to go look at it. My concern is actually seeing this operate, because it is kind of futuristic, and also the safety aspect of it, in which I did talk to Mr. Sarah a little bit about last week, and he told me some of the guidelines that they were going to use. I don't have a problem getting in back them saying go for it and giving them, backing that way. But on this resolution, which it's just the section 2, the final thing where it says, City Council, the City Clerk requests its staff to assist all necessary studies. If they were to leave that part of it off and just leave it at hereby, City Council, City Clearwater hereby recognizes and encourages Beach-Tran and their partner in their effort to bring in existence the first aerial personal rapid transit system to operate in Tampa Bay region, I don't have a problem with that. But to go beyond that right now, to say that we're going to put any kind of money in back of it, I have an issue with that. But I do want to tell them, I do encourage them. So I don't know if this could be edited and have that part of it left out, if everybody has all these other whereases, I think are just, support whereases.
I think they'd be amenable to, go ahead, sir.
Council, I'm going to look at the big picture. And the big picture is, if we approve this for a private company, then how many other private companies out there want to get a letter of encouragement, a resolution of encouragement from the city of Clearwater? I mean, we can say that we are encouraging you to do anything, but the spin is going to be the city of Clearwater is supporting this project or that project, even though all we're saying in our resolution is encourage. So I think this is a very slippery slope for us to go down to, especially in something as futuristic as this, that we have no idea where it's going to lead to. We hear $500,000 or $1 million. Well, that's not really a lot of money to get this whole project done. If you'd come in and said that they have $1 billion set aside to get this project done, then, you got some money talking. But $500,000, I'm sorry, What that means, again, on the big picture is why I would be opposed to any sort of resolution like this. So, Mr. Cundiff, you can bring it back up on Thursday with the revised version if you want to put it on the agenda, or you can let it drop and see what happens. But, I caution you, how many other companies out there are going to want to come to you and say, well, give me a resolution saying that you encourage what you're trying to do. And I think I don't want to put this council or future councils in that position. Mr. Horn, you had something you wanted to say?
Well, I was just going to make you all aware, several years ago, when Echelon came to us and discussed some of their ideas of the gondola concept, there is public information about our infrastructure that we can provide anybody who asks. And so, on the one hand, in this section 2, if it's existing information we have that someone wants, it's public information, we can do that. The other aspects of this that are tying us to what appears to be a little closer relationship is the challenge we would have there would be that in some cases, some of that information that we would be asked to provide or maybe be a part of would really require some decision-making that would involve you all. And especially if you're talking about locating certain characteristics of certain functions in certain parts of the city and all of that. And it wouldn't be as simple as it sounds here. But if it's just, what's the city right away, what's the dimensions of that and all of that, that's all public information. That's easy to provide.
Okay. Anything further on this? Ms. Aiken?
So, are you directing us to revise the resolution or not?
No, it's up to Mr. Cundiff to come back, because it's his agenda item. It's not your agenda item.
That's true.
I'll submit an amended
Don't forget to amend the title, and I'd be happy to help you. Because that title states that we are committing, or you are requesting staff to assist with studies, which I don't really know what that means. I think assist implies staff time and perhaps money to identify not only the routes, but where the facilities can be located. So we can work on that if you'd like.
Okay. Anything further, council? If not, our meeting will be Thursday, February the 6th at 6 p.m. Thank you very much.
Gina,